Don't be like 45, 50 minutes. I mean, so the first thing that we do is that we smile.
Oh,
like, because they take a just like this, like, ready, 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's just like, this is the life.
This is so foreign and enjoyable at the same time. I love it.
So hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm real excited, a little even fangirled, because I have Dr. Alec Miller here with us today to sit and chat about all things. Dr. Alec Miller is a really amazing unknown entity to those of us in the social media realm, as we were just talking about before we turned on the podcast. But he's a pretty big deal in the psychology world because he is the co-founder and clinical director of Cognitive and Behavioral Consultants, which is a big group practice in White Plains and New York City. And he is a clinical professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Montefiore Medical Center and Albert Einstein College in the Bronx. But perhaps he's best known for people like me who are fangirled out for adapting dialectical behavioral therapy for adolescents and their families, and has published, no big deal, just like over 100 peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, books, manuals, and also is an amazing clinician seeing adults, adolescents, couples, and families, and an amazing trainer. I have been in the front row, just, head tilting at Alec's amazing ability to help us to learn how to help people. And so I'm so excited to have you on What You're Craving today. Hi, Alec.
Hey, Molly. So good to see you. And thank you for your lovely and sweet introduction.
Well, I could go on. I could just do the introduction. The other thing we want to say, because in dialectical behavioral therapy, we're really about vulnerability, right? It's your first podcast.
It is.
Baby's first podcast. Congratulations.
I'm so relieved it's with you, because otherwise I'd be anxious otherwise. So thank goodness.
There's no need to be anxious. It's just two friends.
Yeah.
If we can say that about, I think you're my friend. So that's exciting.
You're my friend too. It is such a pleasure
what a big day
to chat with you today. Yeah.
Oh, great. This is so exciting. So I think quickly for the listener, because my mom always says this thing to me. My mom's always like, oh, you sound like such a therapist. She's always like, oh, Molly, stop like sounding like such a therapist. And so I think we're going to try really hard to not sound like therapists today. And I think, dialectical behavioral therapy, which I'm trained in and which you are, the prince of, is amazing. And we're going to call it DBT today. But can you just give us like a rundown about what DBT is?
Yeah.
Why you do it and love it, and why you think it's helpful for people?
Well, first and foremost, I love it because it has science that backs it up. And I'm a little bit biased, but I like things that are shown to be effective and work. So that's for starters.
Okay.
But what I really love about it is that it's compassionate. It's like a way of kind of working with clients and families and saying, I understand your pain. I get that you're having a tough time. And it's a real way to focus on validating the difficulties they're having in their lives. And at the same time saying, hey, we're going to teach you new ways of coping with your life, so you don't have to just feel understood all day. We're going to teach you ways of managing your distress, managing your relationships, managing your emotions, so you can reach your long-term goals. So it's both acceptance and change.
Right. And it comes with a big toolbox of skills, which is what I love about it. Like, I don't want to just talk about my problems all day.
Exactly.
I want to have all different ways to do it. What do you think made you decide that wanted to be your specialty?
When I was in graduate school and I was learning psychodynamic psychotherapy, I found it interesting and, helping people gain insight. But I did feel, like you just said, what was missing was I need to give people tools. I can't just help them say, yes, I understand why I do it. The question is, how are you going to deal with it differently next time?
Right.
And especially working with teenagers who are suicidal or depressed or, having eating disorders, as you know, substance use. What can they do as replacement behaviors? Like, I'm having urges, I'm having cravings, I'm having difficulties. What can I use to tolerate my distress so I don't keep repeating the same old behaviors that get me down this rabbit hole?
Right. Oh my gosh. And I think, yeah, with eating disorders and addictions, I think, I mean, this is what I really want to talk to you about today. Let's just get to it. Can we
Sure.
just get to it?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, easy, Molly, easy. Um, well, because one of the things that I mean, what you're saying, I think resonates so deeply with me when you're saying about this. One of the things that DBT treats is borderline personality disorder. And one of the key parts of borderline personality disorder is this chronic invalidation. And can you talk a little bit about what that means, what like chronic invalidation means?
Yeah, and maybe Molly, we'll just pull back one step ahead of that and say, how do individuals get emotionally dysregulated to the point that they end up doing problematic things like eating disorders? And did I use a
Yeah.
too
No,
technical
yeah,
term,
yeah. I
emotionally
think
dysregulated?
so. Like my mom's in my head, like, what does
Yeah.
emotion dysregulation mean, Molly? Stop sounding
So
like such a therapist.
yes, I just caught myself. I knew, and if mom's listening, I apologize. What I'm trying to say is, what is it that leads people to go down a certain path of where their emotions get the best of them? They get hijacked by their emotions,
Yes.
and then they end up doing things that are injurious or self-destructive, or things that are problematic for them, right? Their
That's
emotions
so
get the
many
best.
people. That's
So many
so
people.
many people.
And the way, through a DBT lens that I understand it, and the way you understand it, is there's two pieces to this. It's kind of like a biosocial theory. And I'm not going to get too technical.
Well,
The
because my mom will
bio,
flip out,
I know, mom, listen, I'll try to make it real simple. The bio means that some of us are emotionally vulnerable, and we're
Yeah.
wired a certain way. We're right. We could be more sensitive, or we could be more emotionally reactive, and things, we're just kind of intense, emotional,
I'm
powerful.
like that. I
Yeah,
need to put on like so much emotional sunscreen in the morning, Alec. Like, oh my
yeah,
goodness. I was born that way. I was
yes,
just born like a little bit like,
right.
and that's like why I'm so excitable and things. It's a
And,
good
and,
thing. It's not all
and
bad.
I was going to say that there's why so many people love you, Molly, is because of your excitability, because of your passion. So, right, being a powerfully emotional person is a wonderful thing on the one hand, and some of the time it gets people in trouble, right?
I think it's such an important thing to note because a lot of the people I encounter, like I think my sensitivity is a superpower. But a
Yeah,
lot of people that I encounter have had their parents say like, oh God, you're so dramatic. Why you're being, I mean, and I think this is like a big part of where
yes,
people turn to unhealthy habits, unhealthy substances.
right.
What you've seen?
Yeah, and I love that you just highlighted that point, because, right, if you're wired to be more sensitive like yourself and many, many other people, and then people say things that we now are going to call, this technical term, invalidating, where they
Yes.
tell you you're overreacting. What's the big deal? Calm down. Or the other converse of that is, oh, it's not a big deal. It's going to be fine. And this reassurance, and here you are crying because you got a poor test grade in chemistry, and they're saying, "Oh, honey, it's only one test. Don't worry,
Yes.
don't worry, don't worry." That reassurance, which comes out of the best intentions from our parents and teachers and therapists, even
Yes.
sometimes could be experienced as really painfully invalidating. I'm crying, and you're telling me not to worry. You don't see how upset I am.
Yeah, I just
So,
got chills like all over my body because that's like somebody sitting there telling you that that feeling isn't
yeah.
okay or isn't normal. How do
Right.
you see that play out? Like, because that's, I think, what's really important for us to all understand is that that starts and then that turns into something, this chronic.
Yeah. So right. So invalidation is when you tell someone, intentionally or not, right, that what their words, their actions, their feelings do not make sense in a particular situation. So let's just understand that. And that is happens all the time. The question is, for people who are emotionally sensitive, that's where we get into trouble. And that's what
Mm,
leads down this pathway of real more emotional pain, dysregulation, and behavioral challenges. There are people who are not as emotionally sensitive, who are not wired the same way. And if someone says, "Oh, calm down, it's not a big deal, Molly," okay, I have the armor. It doesn't,
Right.
you telling me that once or twice is not going to affect me.
Yeah. It makes me want to like roar at you.
Yeah, right, right, right. But for a large group of people, that penetrates in a way where at first you're like, gee, there's a lot of self-doubt. Maybe I shouldn't feel this way.
Mm.
What's the matter with me? Because my mom or my friend keeps telling me I'm overreacting. So there must be something wrong with me. And if you hear that time and time again, like you're overreacting, Molly, you're making too big a deal of it, you start to kind of doubt yourself, right? You start to feel like there's something wrong with me. And then you begin to internalize that as self-invalidating. And you become your own depressive, kind of self-flagellating, punishing. There's something wrong with me. I shouldn't feel this way. And by the way, Molly, I tell people, please don't shoot on yourself. It's not really attractive.
Believe it, Alec. Believe it.
SHOULD. Because where's the rule book that says how one should feel? I mean, what page is it, Molly? What page?
I don't know, but in my childhood, it was a good one. It was a bunch of pages.
Yeah, right. You had a very comprehensive
I
encyclopedic
did.
book.
I had a lot of like, stop being so dramatic. Come on,
yeah.
Get over it.
And that is, and so there is that calm down piece. And then there's the other type, which I want to say is very problematic in its own right. This reassurance without acknowledging the experience. And a lot of anxious parents tell their kids, honey, it's not a big deal. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Right.
It's going to be okay. And that's not a bad thing to do. It's just for emotionally sensitive kids, it's too early in the sequence of the communication. And I tell mom and dad, please just tell Molly that you understand why she's upset about failing her chemistry test.
Right.
Anybody would be upset
Well,
about.
I mean, Alec, I think it happens in the grown-up world too, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think a lot of times people say, oh, it's fine. It's fine. And my experience of it is the person who's telling me that I should feel okay is having a problem with their problem with my feelings. It's
That's
not
right.
my feelings. It's their
That's
problem
right.
with my feelings.
You've come a long way, Molly.
Thank you. It's about it's $100,000 worth of therapy bills. Just
no, but really that's so powerfully important to kind of highlight, right? It's not me. It's them having trouble with dealing with my emotions, and it's their difficulty managing their own emotional response. Very advanced way of thinking, and even for adults, that's a hard thing to kind of.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think even I don't know, I find myself doing it sometimes. Like I'll be in an interaction with a friend and I'll just want to fix it, and I'll just want to fix it. And I'll say, it's fine. Well, it's okay. We'll work it out. And that's just the very last thing they need. They just need presence. They sit there like, it's really hard.
And as you know, I work a lot with families and couples and I don't, both women and men, but men stereotypically tend to be let me roll up my sleeves and let's just get down. What's the problem? Okay, let's solve it. And they're not as stereotypically, myself, maybe in my younger days, not as naturally.
You're just a completely evolved man now.
I'm fully evolved, Molly. I am. My wife, my kids. I'm fully baked at this point. Not exactly. I'm still fallible. Don't worry. But kind of ask the question. What do you need from me? Do you want me just to hear you out and listen? Or do you want problem solving and come up with solutions? And that can be validating if that's what the person wants, because it could also be equally invalidating, Molly, if someone says, I'm so upset, I don't know what to do. And then you're like, oh yes, I see how upset you are. And you just labor on about the pain that they're going through and not say, what are we going to do about it? So the question is, right?
Well, I love this because I love giving people, because we're behaviorists. I love giving people like, here's like, get your pens out, my friends, because you just got your first piece of information, which is, because that's a tough thing in relationships, right? So in relationships, what a wonderful opportunity to say, what do you need right now?
Yes.
You want me to fix this with you? Do you want me to listen to you? I'm here. I am here. I am present with you.
Exactly.
What do you need? I love that.
So if people can take just one thing away from today, that's number one, right?
Yeah, we're only clocked in at like 12 minutes. So sit back, get your pens ready. This is like, we're at school, my friends.
Yeah.
So what you're craving is all about what's underlying these behaviors, right? When we turn to food, when we turn to substance, when we turn to shopping, when we turn to self-hate, when we turn to all of this. And this idea of invalidation, yes, I agree with you. Of course, like we learn it, it happens,
Yeah.
it's like it gets in a cup and then the cup overflows. And as you're explaining it to me, like that is who we become in a way, is that it becomes our identity. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
It can become our identity where we feel like we're flawed human beings because we can't do what seems to be so easy and should be able to be done. Manage your emotions, manage your behaviors. And I think relatedly is this oversimplification of just stop eating as much, just stop
Oh,
drinking so much. And it's the oversimplification and ease of problem solving that I think is also so just do this, just do that. My favorite example, as you know, is maybe I share this with you, is my Nancy Reagan example when she gets up to the podium as First Lady of the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, just brace yourself because I have what I think will be the most helpful thing for all the substance users in the world. Sit down because this will blow your socks off. Ready for this? Just say no. Thank you so much. Just say no. Now, why didn't I think of that? I had 20, can you imagine someone 20 years heroin addiction? I don't know why I didn't think of that. I should have just said no.
and
So
also like I think I've been like, no, no, okay, like now like I've said no, but then
yes,
like third time I'm like, okay, fine, okay, it's a sign. I gotta go do it.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's another feature of it. We just kind of oversimplify it, and then if it and Nancy Reagan said I should just say no, or Alec Miller said I should just say no, and I can't do what they said. Just talk to your guidance counselor and tell him you have this problem. I tell a teenager, and he's like, okay, yeah, Alec, yeah, I'll do that. And then a week later, I'm like, how did it go, Bobby? He's like, what do you mean? I said, did you talk to your guys? No, because I don't even have a relationship. And so there's this kind of oversimplifying as a feature of invalidating environments where just
Yeah.
because I can do it, I can pick up the phone and call.
Well, I think one of the most invalidating environments of all is diet culture. I'll tell you that,
Yes,
right? Like we'll just do this 21-day cleanse and then,
good.
when it's over, you're healed or cured in some way when you've just dealt with one little thing and starved yourself usually, or,
Yes,
making it look easy, or you should be losing. It's such that I think, well, so that I think in and of itself,
yes,
diet culture and and I think even trying to quit substance in and of itself, I think that that
yes,
repetition of failing and
yes,
failing and failing, I think even if you aren't born sensitive,
yes.
can turn into this. I really do.
Yes, I 100% agree with you, right? And so you're highlighting the messaging coming from either mental health professionals or substance professionals, as well as media,
Ugh,
society at large, right? So it's really hard to kind of get alternative messages if that's so pervasive. And
so
I,
pervasive.
can I just use the word pervasive two more times because pervasiveness is the real problem.
Tell
We
me
all,
more. What does that mean?
well, when I gave a presentation a few years ago, and I had a bunch of friends and family in the audience, and one of my college roommates said, Alec, you talked about this invalidating environment. I think I've been doing it with my daughters their whole lives. And he was like crying.
Oh,
And I said to him, you're a wonderful dad, pal. You do sometimes say things or do things that are invalidating, just like I do to my own kids. I don't want you to feel like because you've said a few of these examples that I've given, that all of a sudden they're going to be screwed up for life. Pervasiveness means, I said, you don't do this pervasively. Pervasiveness is day in and day out. You're lazy. Why don't you put a smile on your face, Molly? Because we're going to Uncle Harry's house and I want you, we're a happy family. Remember that. Remember, we're happy. So just, you better look happy,
right.
even if you're not feeling happy, right?
Right.
You better stop. It's this pervasiveness of there's something wrong with you. And I think that's what you're alluding to about
Absolutely.
substance and eating and diet culture.
Well, yeah, I think with diet culture, it's like what I constantly say, or how I try to validate is like it wasn't you, it was the diet, right? Like because diet culture is like, oh, you failed it, you're bad.
Yes.
God, what's wrong with you? You can't adhere to that. Oh, you can't count these points. What, you can't do that. It's like, and then it does. I mean, and there's billions of dollars invested in a way that like if you can't do it, you're wrong and you're bad. And somehow in that abuse and that invalidation becomes that you'll go back and try again and again and again.
That's
And
right.
that just
That's right.
really,
It could never be the intervention, the diet itself, or the therapy
right.
itself is the problem. It's always the individual that's the flawed problem here,
Well, and
and that's
yeah,
important. That's important for our people who are listening to hear, Molly. Right? That therapy itself can help some people, but not everybody. And if it doesn't help you, the client, the patient, then maybe it's the therapy is not a good fit for you, and we got to find a different therapy.
oh, Alec, yes, yes. If someone tells you that there's only one way, run away constantly. That's all. Like, if I could just say one thing around for the rest of my life, I would say that.
Exactly.
What I think ends up happening, and this is what I really want you to school us on. What a gift to just be schooled by Alec Miller today. It's amazing. What I think up, and so I always think like the relationship with food ends up being our relationship with ourselves, right? And I learned in DBT school, and this is a little bit therapist-y, mom, the chronic invalidation is a form of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
One of our, I think, um, Charlie Swenson taught me that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I just thought like, well, then if I'm chronically self-invalidating, then I'm sort of abusing myself.
Yes, that's right.
What do you think about that? Like,
I think that's a fair point. I think, Melanie Harned has talked about the term traumatic invalidation, right?
oh,
Where,
tell me what that, unpack that for me. That is fascinating.
well, it's along the lines of what you're saying is kind of where the environment is communicating to you. It could be an aunt, an uncle, a parent, a sibling, a friend that, imagine friend to friend. You're disgusting. You're a hoe. You should go kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No one likes you. Like, again,
You're unlovable.
you're
Yeah.
unlovable. That's traumatic invalidation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like you should work harder on, you're not trying hard enough on your chemistry test, a one-off. But hearing those other more severe things can lead to even PTSD
Yeah.
symptoms. And then,
Well, I think we got to stop on that, right? Because that's like if we're walking around wondering why and I use quotations here, feeling so crazy. It's like, if that's what is on your record player over and over, how are we not to take that in? And I just want to say on the diet culture, if I've treated people who have been on a diet, I was on a diet since the age of 7, from 7 to like 30, like that's just going to do something to your outlook on life, right?
right. So what were those record players playing for you in your head at age 7, 10, and
Oh my
15?
gosh, are we having therapy? This is amazing. I mean, I think that it just was like, I'm not good enough. I'm too much. I can't do this. I'm going to be fat for life. I can never succeed. The only way I'm ever going to be loved if I'm this way. I mean,
Yes.
on an aside, losing or releasing all of my weight and then not having my life be perfect was its own situation. I was like, hold on, excuse me. Like,
I thought this was the solution. Everyone
where's
told
the
me.
pot of gold? Like what happened? Like,
Right.
I still have problems. They're sometimes worse. What? Like, this is not okay.
It felt so nice to just put it as that was the problem, right? And
like literally. Yeah. So I guess that's like, the question is like, I love this idea of traumatic invalidation. And so is there a case to be made for like traumatic self-invalidation?
Yeah, absolutely. Because just like we talked about it, the invalidating environment can lead to and yield, this pervasive self-invalidation, which is I'm not worthy, as you said, there's something wrong with me. I should never feel this way. You feel defective. And that is here's a depressogenic. Depressogenic. There's something fatally fundamentally wrong with who I am as a human being. Those thoughts are just a sledgehammer pummeling you into the ground. That I am not worthy. And so
it makes perfect sense that we're drowning it in ice cream and and alcohol and whatever, right? I mean, that's a numbing agent in that moment, right?
Who can tolerate feeling that way day in and day out? Where's the ice cream? Where's the alcohol? Where's my vape pen? Where's the heroin? I can't. I have to escape from these uncomfortable feelings and thoughts. And that's really what the therapy is going to need to target, is how to be able to kind of challenge those thoughts, experience negative emotions, and not escape. And see, I can feel sad and I can feel lonely sometimes, but it doesn't mean I have to go to use heroin and go eat. And some of the therapy is really exposing yourself
Yeah.
to that and really challenging these beliefs that started, like you said, at age 6, 7, 8, and chipping away at those and looking at the facts behind them.
And I think there's like also this piece that, there's these really like termite sort of things I hear people say in
Mm,
session. I have one woman who always says this thing to me, like, you can't understand, you can't understand, you can't understand. And I have to always highlight to her, like, you saying that out loud over and over again is so self-invalidating. Or she'll
yes,
say, this
yes,
isn't important. Oh God, this is such a stupid
yes,
problem. In
right,
therapy, she's saying this, right?
absolutely,
And I'll highlight, like, wow, to walk around with that being the tape player, like,
yeah,
hand me the
right,
Doritos.
right. Nobody can understand you. No, nobody can relate to you. You can't have those feelings. Are not okay to kind of try to make people understand. That's exactly the work, right?
So okay, simple question, Alec. So now what? So then what? Like, what,
Well,
how do we self-validate? Like, can you talk us through, like, I feel really bad, but we didn't define validation, and it's actually such a beautiful definition. So can you
yeah.
just tell us?
So validation is basically communicating to another person,
Or
whether it be
yourself?
or yourself, that what you're feeling and thinking and doing makes sense in a particular situation. So I could say to myself before this first podcast in my life, it
Oh.
makes sense you're a little anxious, not knowing what Molly's going to talk about, having no idea where this conversation is going. Because I'm an academic. I like to teach. I have my PowerPoint slides. I'm prepared. I have no idea what's so. It makes sense that Alec Miller would be saying, talking to myself in the third person, would be have a little trepidation. What are we talking about today exactly, Molly? Right. So that, and you could validate that too, as you
I could
did.
validate you are doing wonderfully.
Thank you for the validation and the positive
You're a
reinforcement.
very natural podcaster. I knew that
Oh,
about you.
that's why I got the invitation.
Yeah, exactly.
But validation is exactly that. Self-validation is letting yourself know, like I just said, it makes sense why I'm feeling this way. And it makes sense. You tell the other person how you understand their experience. Now, when I teach this to people, they say it seems awkward. Like a parent says to a kid or a spouse says to a significant other, oh, I understand why you feel this way. And this sing-songy therapist sounding
Yeah.
awful, disingenuous. So it has to be genuine for it to land. If you don't know what you're validating, ask questions to clarify. Help me understand, Molly, what's going on so I can better understand your experience before you say, oh, now I understand, because that's just total BS. If
Yeah.
you don't understand, don't say you understand. They know you don't, right?
What about internally? Like, how do we self-validate? How would you say we self-validate?
So I think there's several kind of steps to it, right? I think number one, you want to really listen and pay attention to yourself and be mindful of your thoughts and feelings. Like, I'm having these thoughts, I'm having these feelings, I'm having these behaviors, right? So first you have to be mindfully aware of what is my experience.
Yes.
You can't validate it if you don't know what's coming down your mental conveyor belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And two, then you want to describe, like, what, wow, I'm really feeling angry right now, or it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that I'm nervous. Like, so describing what you're feeling and then respond in a way that you're kind of taking yourself seriously, right? Accepting that it's okay to have this emotional experience. You
Right.
know, it's okay to feel sad sometimes. It's okay to feel lonely sometimes, like, as opposed to I shouldn't. The should, right? Shoulding on
Right.
yourself. So
Right.
those are a couple of
Like,
steps.
I'm a well-published psychologist. Like, why
Right.
would I be nervous for a podcast with a friend of mine? Right. Because that's like because that's what I think the voice would say. Then I'd be
Absolutely.
like, wow, maybe I'll just have some frosted flakes before I go on the show so that I can numb out and not have to listen to this voice inside of my head. Right.
How do you know? Oh, no, no. Yeah, no. Yeah, right, right. Exactly. And so you're also pointing out this showing tolerance for yourself, right? Tolerance for my emotions. It makes sense that I'm anxious talking to Molly, and therefore I don't have to escape with frosted flakes because
Well, and
it
we're also not going to this place, I think, that is hard. I mean, I think you can get there eventually, but you're also not saying, or at least I'm not hearing you say, like, Molly, you're amazing. Like, you're not sitting there like staring in the mirror, like, Alec, you're the man.
yeah,
Do it. You're
yeah,
amazing, which I think
Yeah.
sometimes useful, but if you're really struggling, you have to
Right.
get to truth before you can get to cheerleading,
I,
right?
lo- I love that point, right? Because
Oh,
that's the
thank you.
mindfulness part is just thinking positively, like you're the man, is in itself invalidating if you're not feeling like the man in this context.
Oh, slow that down. I think that is the whole, because there's this toxic positivity that we have going on in our culture right now that is
Mhm.
the essence of get over it, right?
Yeah,
That is the
right.
essence of like, just be happy, like be grateful for things, and I think there's
Yes.
this part where you tell me to be grateful, like it's almost traumatizing to me. Like, I just don't feel grateful right now.
No, I don't feel grateful. I don't feel particularly expert or special on something. But just tell yourself that anyway. That is in a definition of invalidation. If you're telling yourself something that's totally contrary to how you feel, right?
Yep.
Now, could I be dialectical about it?
Well, what does that mean? What does
Could I
like
see,
dialectical
could I
mean?
honor multiple truths or aspects about myself at the same time? Yes, I'm a novice podcaster. I'm a little anxious about that. And at the same time, another truth,
Mhm.
I have some expertise. I have done this for 25, 30 years. I can speak reasonably articulate about this topic. And so that's true too. And I have a good
Mm.
relationship with Molly, and she's not too much of a hard ass. So she'll kind of help me through the process. That's true too. So they're kind of
Mm.
checking the facts about this
Honestly, like
situation.
as you're saying it, I'm like feeling so much calmer. I just want
Yeah,
to say like it works. You know what I
it
mean? Like
does.
I'm like, okay, he's gonna be okay. I mean, the other thing I think happens in this chronic invalidation, especially in therapy and in diet culture, is I think in the attempt to not experience failure, we say, it's not gonna work. I'm not even gonna try it.
Yeah,
What do you
right.
do when people say that to you? Like, just yeah,
Um,
good for you, Alec. I'm so glad you can self-validate. Not for
yeah,
me.
yeah. Well, I kind of want to first kind of see what is the function of that. Why are they kind of digging their heels in such a
Curiosity.
radical way? What functions does that serve to not be open-minded to trying something else, another possible solution? How is that working for them? Why is that their go-to? I'm sure there's some threat. There's some fear of
Ah.
trying something different, right? This is my go-to. My ice cream, my Doritos. This is what is tried and true. I've been doing it for X number of years. It works.
Okay, I really like I need to talk about this in this minute.
Yeah.
So, because I'm obsessed with what you're saying. Because I talk to so many people who say these sorts of incredibly self-invalidating things to me, like, I'm just lazy, or I know it's such an excuse.
Mm.
But I wasn't able to do it. I know this is an excuse, and I love what you're saying, and I want you to talk to us a little bit about what you're saying about willfulness and what willfulness is, because what I hear you saying is when we're acting that way, there's actually a threat. And I want to understand that, because I think that is, if we can understand that we're actually feeling threatened and
Yeah.
not lazy,
Yeah.
then I think we might have a little bit of ray of hope coming into the podcast today.
I think so, right? I mean, if you're going to be taking away my go-to and telling me to do something else, and I can't use this anymore, I have to do this. I'm now all of a sudden anxious,
Hmm.
and I had never tried what you're telling me before, and I, I feel like this helps me regulate my emotions. I don't know about this, and
Mm.
so when I think of it like a painter's palette, when I think, I work with some teenagers who are kind of emotional, like wearing black and have a certain identity, and I'm
I
trying
love
to
them.
introduce, yeah, I'm trying to introduce other colors. And instead of saying, stop with the black, for God's sakes, let's go with some rainbow colors over here. I don't want to do that. That's going to be threatening, scary.
Uh,
Instead of subtracting, what if we do additive?
mhm.
So instead of saying, stop that, you shouldn't do that, you have to do this, can we experiment? Can we try something? This is your go-to, your black color or your Doritos, and could we try an alternative as an experiment to see if we can add another tool in your toolbox as
Mm.
opposed to getting rid of your old toolbox? So I do feel like
Oh,
there's
that's good.
a lot of fear around that, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
I think so. And I think my experience too with eating disorders and diet culture is people don't want to fail again.
Yeah,
Like no, like
yeah,
I would just
right.
rather like why, and
Yeah,
that makes, and by the way, hashtag this is validating. that makes all the sense
Yes,
in the world to me. And I think like I can say that as a therapist, but I can say that to myself. Like,
yes, yes.
yeah, of course you don't want to experience that failure.
So if you're a partner or a parent or a therapist in this context, you really want to validate what you just said, Molly. Validate the valid. It makes total sense why it feels threatening and scary to give this up, because this has been your go-to.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't want to have another failure experience. That I already feel bad. That will make me feel
Oh
even
my, I've already feel,
worse.
and I felt bad for 30 years of this
Yeah,
chronic
right,
failure.
right.
Totally. I said that to someone last night. Like, she said, you know, I just have all these, I know there's all these excuses. And I said, I don't know. Like, I think you have, we have to appreciate
Mhm.
from about like from what you're saying, this chronic invalidation and how
Yeah,
that has formed us. In my DBT, I learned like this well-worn snow groove that
yeah,
we
yeah.
just know to be true. And building a new snow groove is brave.
It is brave. And not doing that, the judgments of ourself, judgments of others, it leads to anger. And anger
Mhm.
is really toxic. Self-anger, self-loathing, anger we have at others is toxic. And so
Tell me more. Yes.
well,
And
I think in relationships with other people, right? You think about how in families we get so, in partners, we get so judgmental of each other and so angry
mm,
at each other, and creates this lack of understanding.
mhm,
And when I work with families around this, I guess coming back full circle, this invalidation cycle, I want to help individuals recognize what is my primary emotion, because I seem angry and irritated all the time. But what is it as a partner, as a parent, that's driving it? What's the primary emotion? Because my
mhm.
loved one sees me being angry and frustrated and disappointed. And what's the matter?
Yeah.
But you know what it is? If I'm the husband or the father, I'm scared.
Oh,
I'm sad. I may even
mhm,
feel ashamed that I didn't do more to help my loved one earlier.
mm,
And the more this person can identify mindfully the primary emotion, I'm sad, I'm worried about you, I feel
mhm,
ashamed about myself as a bad father or a bad husband, and can tell you that,
mm.
wow,
So
that's going to
powerful.
get the judgments down, the anger, the toxicity.
Yeah. The
So,
softening, right? The
right.
softening into it.
And as you said at the beginning, Molly, right? It's like, that's my problem. That's my
Right.
problem. That's not you. That's my own anger, my own sadness, my own shame.
What's also so interesting because I'm just sort of thinking about it from the self is like I could do it internally. Like I
Yes.
think back when I was really in my eating disorder, I mean, I literally was like a walking rage machine. And I think
Mhm,
if I would have been able to say, like, okay, well, what's underneath this? What am I
mhm.
actually? I think I was scared out of my mind,
Yeah,
ashamed beyond
yes,
comprehension, and
right.
sad and lonely. And those
Absolutely.
are different problems to solve than me being a rage machine.
Totally different problems to solve, and it's less toxic in a way, right?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
somewhat easier relatively than just an anger, rage ball all the time.
Right. Not that
Absolutely.
there's anything wrong with anger. No need to get
No,
upset, everybody.
no, no.
Namaste anger. We validate your anger. The anger in
Yeah,
me sees the anger in
yeah.
you.
Sometimes anger is anger, cigar is cigar. Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, but I'm so into this because we're like literally like like in my on my wish list, I had three things I wanted to talk to you about, and we're at the third one.
Oh my God.
Natural, you're so
Oh,
natural, Alec.
did I tee it up for you?
You teed it up
Oh,
completely.
so excited.
I'm telling you, look at this. You know, your emotions around your first podcast were not as accurate as you described them to be.
Oh, can we talk about accurate expression?
Yes, let's do it. Yes.
I mean, just you mentioned accurate, it made me think about this as it ties in with validation,
Tell me
right?
more.
Because like if I,
Well, what does accurate expression mean? My mother's having a fit.
right. So it's a two-person dance, right? If I'm communicating to you that I'm upset about something, and I say, "You're being ridiculous, Molly. Calm down. I'm so just raging at you. You're so stupid. You never try hard enough." That's not accurate expression. That's inaccurate expression because I can't receive that information. But if you sit down with me and say, or I say to you, Molly, I'm really hurt. I'm really sad. I'm really disappointed that you blew through our lunch date. You totally didn't text me, and then I'm sitting there outside waiting for you, and I never hear from you. That really hurts me.
Mm.
And then that allows room for you to process and then communicate back. I understand, Alec, how pissed off you or how sad and disappointed you are.
Mm.
That leaves more room for accurate validation back. So
Ugh.
inaccurate expression leads to poor validation opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Accurate expression, really communicating primary emotions, like I said, sadness or anxiety or frustration or hurt, leads to more accurate
I love that. And I'm so new
validation.
to the podcast game, but I've been interviewing all the people who I like, love and respect the most. And I think we always get to the bottom when I say, what are we really craving? One of the things that I'm hearing over and over again is like authentic connection,
Yeah.
right? And if
Yes.
someone's screaming at me, I'm
Right.
going to tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yes.
Pardon my language.
Right. Or the cheesy smile. Everything's fine. Everything's
Right.
fine.
Yeah, totally.
But meanwhile, you could tell they're seething. Everything's
Right.
fine.
Yeah, right.
That's not accurate expression either. This
Well,
kid,
here's the other thing, right? If I'm like, yeah, it's fine, I promise you I'm in the freezer with the ice cream after that.
that's
I
right.
promise you that. I cannot tolerate that level of it not matching, that inaccuracy.
It's enraging in that way too, because I know there's something going on there, but you're not telling me. And so, yes. So Alan Frusetti's done a lot of work on this.
Oh, he's
inaccurate
the other
expression.
dreamboat. He's my first trainer in DBT. Hi,
Yeah,
Alan.
that's right. So he's done a lot of work on this. So you'll have him on a future podcast elaborating on this topic. But I interrupted your flow because this was your third item. I don't even know what it is yet.
Alec, it's
coming.
okay. It's like this is a podcast is just going to lunch with a friend,
Absolutely.
This is a fun
Absolutely.
lunch.
I'm enjoying this.
I'm having a great, yeah, it's fun, right?
It is. It is.
My third part is, because this is the other thing I think people have a real struggle with when we are talking about emotions, is people say to me constantly, like, I think people in my career have just coined this phrase of like emotion phobic.
Mm.
They're like, I can't stop binging on this food, or I can't stop restricting this food, or I can't stop checking my body because I'm too scared of what I'm going to feel. I'm too scared of feelings. Is that something you've experienced in your, I don't even say that. I mean, I really mean that. I know, of course you have.
Yeah. Is that accurate expression? No, so Molly, I absolutely have experienced many of my clients and I think have said, and we understand when we look at a sequence of events, like, why do you keep doing X behavior?
Mm-hmm.
It's escaping from this emotion that seems apparently intolerable. And that's what
maybe lethal, Alec.
could be lethal.
No way, feels lethal, not as lethal.
No,
I think
right.
that's
No, it could be lethal in their thinking, right?
Right. The sadness will kill me. That's what
yes.
like the sadness will kill me.
The sadness will kill me. The loneliness is intolerable. I have to die by suicide because I can't sit with my loneliness. So I'm going to start Googling ways of overdosing and how many pills do I need to take. That's escape. Even suicidal planning is a way of escaping negative emotions. I don't have to think about, I don't have plans Saturday night because now I'm on my laptop in my bedroom looking at ways of dying.
Wow.
So I'm not
That's
even
like an emotion avoidance in its own way. Wow.
That's another example of emotion avoidance. An emotion phobia is exactly that. And there are many people in our world who, like you said, are sensitive and exquisitely emotionally sensitive.
Yes.
And maybe because they've been invalidated, they've also feel like I shouldn't feel this. I have to get away from this. It's intolerable. And they go to
I love that word, exquisitely emotionally, because I think that's a really beautiful way to say, because I actually do think those of us who are highly emotional are exquisite. I am going to like put that on a Post-it on my mirror. Yes. I'm going to start mantraing that. You are exquisitely emotional.
Yes, it's a positive and it's descriptive, exquisitely emotionally sensitive and powerfully emotional people. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I just feel like if you're relating, you are exquisite.
Yes.
You're like, I always think, because I know some people who can't access it. And I mean, and again, I'm just down the road a little bit, like I've done the work, but it is sad to me when people can't experience this range of emotions. And in order to feel the amazing creativity and how writing a book, like, both of us have, it's like, you have to be able to access that. You can't just have like this, one lane emotion.
Yeah. And anybody who's yourself, or you've had loved ones who are that way. And my own grandfather, I never met him because he died by suicide before I was born, but I have to believe he was one of those people.
Yeah.
He worked at a department store. He got fired. I don't know if he felt depressed or ashamed, but he
Mm,
left my father, who was a teenager, and his younger siblings behind, and he died by suicide. And I have to believe my own grandfather was that type of person too.
right.
Could
Right.
and so that's why I'm so passionate, and I know you are too, about bringing these life skills to people at earlier and earlier ages, and in school
Absolutely.
districts, just to give everyone. You learn English and math and social studies. Can we teach them life skills?
Well,
Right?
right. Well,
Fifth
right.
grade.
Yeah, yeah. And I think
Lessons.
in DBT, there are these modules, just a little note to everybody else, but one of the modules is emotion regulation.
Yes.
Can you just, I mean, in 3 seconds, but can you just like run? I love emotion regulation module. I love it. I love that we are teaching people skills to put on emotional sunscreen. Can you
Yeah.
walk me through like what your take on, because I think that's the point, right? Like I love this, Alec. We're so scared of having an emotion that
Yeah.
sometimes we'd rather like not even live than have to feel lonely.
Indeed. I mean, so we're talking about emotion regulation skills, Molly. The first thing you have to do is understand what is your feeling, and we teach our clients, like, what's the model of emotions? Like, what are the triggers? What are the thoughts? What are the internal body reactions? All that often come and precede your awareness of the emotional experience.
Like sort of breaking it down into smaller parts, because
Yeah.
emotions can feel so big and scary. So you're just like, well, there's little teeny pieces that make up one big emotion.
Yeah, emotions are very complex, right? And then with emotions, as we've talked about, alluded to, are action urges. Like, I feel ashamed, so I have the urge to escape. I have the urge to binge. I have the urge to, right? And
Mhm.
then action urges are not actions; those are just urges. So I want to have our clients understand that these emotions may trigger urges. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily act on it. Maybe we can give you some distress tolerance ways of managing the urge, right? So there's a
Yeah.
whole series of things to understand the complexity of emotions. Yeah.
Well, I think also like there's this part too. I don't know if you've seen this, but I sometimes see like when I can sit down with someone and talk through something that's happened, and I can say, what were you feeling? And then they'll say, well, I just hate my husband so much. And I'm like, well, that's not a feeling, you know? But when we can boil it down, as we've done a few times in our own chaining our behavior
Yeah.
in our lunch date today,
Yeah.
and we can really get to saying, wow, you were
Yeah.
really sad about that. Just that validation of a feeling is like, oh,
Naming it can tame it. Name it can tame it. Right.
naming it can tame it.
Yes. Right. Just naming it can help me regulate in and of itself. So that's part one. And I mean, as you know, there's many, many other motion regulation skills I could go into
I mean, all
ad
day.
nauseam.
Yeah, we
But
can get the whiteboard out.
I mean, there's so many things we do that make ourselves more emotionally vulnerable. Like, we don't take care of our sleep as well. We don't take care of our eating as well.
Mhm.
We overuse alcohol or drugs, which makes us more emotionally vulnerable.
Well, that's such an
Um,
interesting thing, though, right? Like, I mean, talk about a cycle. I'm so scared of having big feelings that I don't sleep, I use drugs, I binge eat, then I'm more vulnerable,
Yeah,
right?
right.
To that. But my feelings bigger. And it just is this never ending cycle of just being able to sit with a feeling.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Wait, talk me through opposite action, because I think that's such a good one. Like I want to get like
Yeah.
let's give everybody listening a cute little like take home skill.
Sure. So opposite action, the Marsha Linehan, to her brilliant credit, who
Praise.
is our mentor and God
She sort
extraordinaire,
of is. She's a goddess.
DBT treatment developer extraordinaire.
She's like Oprah, like she's always listening.
That's right. She came up with this idea based on research that if you have an emotion and you have an action urge, so let's say I feel anxious because I have to give a podcast, and I have the urge to avoid, because anybody who's anxious wants to escape and avoid, right? You don't want to do the thing you're anxious of. If you're scared of dogs, you don't want to go pet a dog. If you're scared of heights, you don't want to go to the top of the building. So yeah, I could have had the urge to go and say, Molly, I'm not feeling so well today.
Yeah. Alec, I have that urge like more often than I could even admit. Well, I guess I'm admitting it to everybody. I want to cancel all the time. It's
Yeah.
literally like my core value.
And listen, I grew up, the public speaking was hard for me. That was a difficult thing. And people are like, that's ridiculous, Alec. You give public speeches all the time. But in the beginning, when I was younger, as a teenager, I would want to avoid things, and I did avoid some things. So opposite action is to do the opposite, face the fear, but
Mhm.
not just like show up and like, hi, Molly, and head down and speak and looking away. It's like looking you in the eye as
Mm.
much as I can on Zoom, looking you in the eye, chest up, voice tone, projecting, act opposite all the way.
Mm.
And so
All the
that
way.
by doing it all the way I'm trying to do right now,
You're doing great.
can help me bring down the intensity of my negative emotions. So acting opposite. So every emotion has
How
an
does that, how does it, because like it's a good sales pitch, but in my heart, I
yeah,
like always go to my sickest self and I'm like, nope,
yeah.
can't do it.
Every emotion has an action urge, right? So if you think about, if I always act on the urge, the cycle that we're talking about, the dysfunctional cycle, will keep
Yeah.
going this way. I love if you visualize a wheel going in reverse now and doing
Mm.
opposite action, it can maybe lessen the intensity of it. And it doesn't happen, as you point out, by doing it one time.
I
My
wish that
first,
was true though.
I wish it were true. You need repeated experiences of opposite action, usually, to kind of regulate that emotion. So if
Mhm.
it's sadness, what's the action urge? You want to lay in bed and pull the covers over your head.
Yeah, fetal position,
Yeah,
Netflix.
yeah, Netflix, maybe some Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
always.
yeah. But the opposite of that, put the Haagen-Dazs down, get off the couch or bed, stand up, and get active doing something. Go for a walk, call a
And is it
friend.
like do it and then you say that to yourself and you'd say, I'm doing this in the name of opposite action. I'm doing this
Yes,
in the name of, and I would even say like self-love, right? Because I think
I love that.
that's how we
Yes,
create a relationship with ourselves is by just starting to do those things that are really hard.
I love that yes, it is the name of self-love. It's the name of self-help. It's the name of bringing these intense, I'm exquisitely emotionally sensitive.
Mm.
If I want to be a little less sensitive and have less powerful emotions that are controlling me, maybe this opposite action, little by little, if I do it all the way,
All the
will
way.
all the way. That's the key. I can't be socially anxious, go to a party and stand at the corner of the room and not talk to and say, hi, I'm Alec. I can't just sit there in the
Guacamole.
punch bowl and guac and chips. I could do that, but I will get that first, by the way. I will get my guac and chips and my sangria.
And then I'll say
Then
hello.
I will say hello. I will have that with me. Maybe that is a little safety behavior. That now you mention it, could be feel a little better having my guac and chips and
Yeah, see, there you go.
so, yeah.
I wonder like what is because I think what happens a lot in diet culture and this sort of aversion to failure is that you only go halfway, right? So I know like with how I help people, what the first thing even in the book I wrote, the second chapter before I even write about food, I say, take a vow right now that you're going to finish this.
Yeah, I like
Like
that.
talk about all the way.
All the
Because
way.
I think I
Yeah.
find when people only go halfway,
Yeah,
it reinforces the thing we're trying to.
exactly. You're still convincing yourself that it doesn't help unlearn these prior lessons. So
Right.
for example, when I many years ago, I had to give my first grand rounds, which is a public presentation at a hospital. And you know what the topic was? Treatment of panic disorder. And so I was sitting there in the front of the podium, perspiring, hyperventilating. And you know what I did? Opposite action all the way. I don't think I ever told you this story. I just told everyone, ladies and gentlemen, let me run through the symptoms of panic attacks because I'm having one right now. And
Oh
I'm
my
going
gosh.
to. And doing that, Molly, was really helpful because I kind of made it a lesson. I just embraced it. I just owned it. And I told them, and literally after 5 minutes of telling them about my panic attack and the criteria for panic disorder, I started feeling a lot better because I did all the way. I didn't have to hide it.
And you were like self-validating. I mean, you basically just
Yes.
like put a bow on this whole podcast, Mr. I mean, right? You're like, well, I stood in front of everybody. I
Yeah.
self-validated, described what was happening to me.
Yes.
It helped everyone else to feel validated themselves that they were feeling anxious also.
This is true. I didn't think
mean,
of it that way, but you're absolutely right. That was another feature of it. Yeah.
amazing. Amazing. You're amazing. I mean, I would love usually we say to everybody, so if people want to get in touch with you, what are your social channels? But Alec, you're
Yeah,
a dinosaur.
I am a dinosaur. I am a dinosaur.
It's a
Um,
shame. I would be happily watching your Instagram videos. So
yeah, well,
just,
you are so,
planting a seed with you.
so yes, we'll enjoy. I've enjoyed this so much, Molly, and I guess people can you Google me and find me the old-fashioned emails and websites,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, of course. But
LinkedIn. Yeah.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
real. It's just real professional, very highbrow. I'm very into it. I'm very lowbrow. I'm like, come hang with me on Facebook. That's come over to my
Yeah.
house. I mean, that's fine.
I've never had a Facebook account, Instagram, Snapchat, none of the above. None. None.
Well, I mean, I wonder what that, probably such a peaceful life.
I was so appreciative. I was waiting for the judgments, and you seem to be very having positive judgments of a peaceful
I'm
life.
also trying to practice my validation skills
Yeah.
because I feel like we really reviewed them. And gosh, I mean, the self-validation of it all.
And I got to tell you though, because I feel a little insecure about the fact that I don't have all my social channels like you do, and the fact that you were able to say it's a peaceful life, that is partly the intent of that, right? Because
Oh,
I work hard, I have a family, I try to play hard too, but I feel like I feel out of control.
I have a friend who's not on social, and I said to him, why did you decide to go on? I said, that's amazing. Why have you never decided to go on social? And he said, because every time I tell people I'm not on social media, they say, that's amazing. He said, I've never found a reason to go on social. I mean, it's really true though.
Yeah.
One more question before we go. I mean, it's sort of deep, but I think we can do it. But like, if you really think about, I mean, Alec, you have experience with chronically suicidal. I mean, you're really have been in the depths with people. If you could really think about what people are craving, like what are they really craving when you're seeing all of these other behaviors, these problematic, heartbreaking behaviors, what do you think is at the heart and the soul of all of it is what we're really craving?
I think at the end of the day, people are craving acceptance.
Mm.
People are craving connection and some degree of contentment, right? So acceptance, connection, and some degree of contentment. And, there's so much stress and anxiety and intrusive, all this stuff we talked about that gets in the way of that. But if we can self-acceptance, have other people externally accept them, and social media, I hate to say it.
Yeah, I am with you.
Especially for young people.
Well,
There's,
sure.
the
Because they're
increase,
comparing their insides to someone's outsides. That's a nasty way to live.
right? And then the snap maps, the teenagers are saying, "Oh, I wasn't invited. Look at all of my friends are at so and so's house. I'm not there." Right? It's just and the stuff that is said on social media sometimes is not always the kindest.
I mean, you sound very knowledgeable on social media. I don't even know what a snap map is.
Well,
So
I
good
have
for you, Alec.
I have teenagers, so I'm aware, and I've had to kind of keep an eye on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
I like you have like a subspecialty in social media without actually. I'm very into it. It's very interesting.
That's right. That's right.
But I agree with that. I think that idea of, connection and contentment. Oh my goodness, if that's not, and it's hard to be content when there's so much competition and comparison around.
And if you're not feeling accepted and you don't accept yourself, it's just you're never going to find that contentment, right? Because you're chronically striving for something that you aren't now.
Amazing. Well, what a pleasure.
Molly, thank you so much.
You did it, Alec.
I love hanging with you. It's so much fun. And
you did it. Baby's first podcast. You did it. Congratulations. We should have a party when we're done with all this COVID stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It was so fun. Okay.